All right. Hey there, and welcome to this week's L Chat. I'm Lauren Hooker, the designer, founder, and digital strategist behind Ellen Company, which is a business, blogging, and design resource for creative entrepreneurs. And I'm thrilled that you've taken the time on your Friday to join in with Natalie and I for today's L Chat. If you're unfamiliar with LChat, it's an informal chat once a week where we meet to discuss specific topics that are pertinent to business owners in the creative industry. And this is our first LChat of 2016, so I thought it might be fitting to invite our first guest, Natalie McNeil, the gorgeous entrepreneur behind She Takes on the World, to discuss planning and goal setting for your business in the new year. Natalie is an expert on goal setting and business planning, and she actually just came out with a new book, and I have it right in front of me. It's called the Concord Kit, and we'll get to that in just a moment too. I'm going to let Natalie introduce herself in just a moment, but before we get started, I have a few housekeeping items. If the screen resolution on the live stream on your end is a little bit blurry, there should be an option underneath the video for a higher resolution. So be sure to do that. And second, I'm sure you've already seen the chat feature. I think you all are already introducing yourselves on there, and I'm so excited about that. Feel free to use that to ask questions throughout the chat, to jump in with your feedback. We're going to leave some time for a Q&A with Natalie at the end of this LChat for you to ask specific questions, so feel free to add them on there as we go along. So those are the housekeeping details. I'm going to go ahead and jump on over to Natalie so she can tell you a little bit more about herself.
Hey everyone, and Lauren, thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here today, and I'm glad it worked out. I wish everybody a very happy new year. And as Lauren said, I'm the founder of She Takes on the World and author of a new book called The Concord Kit, which is a creative business planner. My background is actually in media and production, and I'm an Emmy award-winning media producer and ran that business for a little while. And She Takes on the World was just gaining a lot of momentum at the time, and I decided a few years ago to make it my full-time job. So I'm full-time at the helm of She Takes on the World now, and we have a lot of exciting things that continue to roll out, and have a new brand that we'll be launching in 2016. So got a lot on my plate right now, and we find a way to balance it and to organize it and to get all of these things done. I used to be called Natalie Make It Happen McNeil in high school and into university. So, I really want to help you to figure out what you want this year, but also be able to break it down into steps that are going to keep you accountable throughout the year. And I think that's where I've had a lot of success, and the reason why I've been able to get to the point that I'm at right now in my businesses with the 3 companies that I've built and that I'm running. So really excited to be here today and answer all of your questions and help you plan for your best year yet. And I know we always say this every year. We're like, I want this to be my best year yet, but it's in the first couple weeks of January, those actions that you take to start putting that into motion that I think are the most powerful. This is the most powerful time for you to get your plan actually rolling and in action.
Yes, I love that. We're excited to have you on today. And if you can't tell, with all that Natalie has on her plate, she is a pro when it comes to goal setting and business planning. So I'm excited to just go ahead and jump right in to the first question. So it's easy to let the results of this past year of 2015 get in the way of planning and goal setting for the new year, especially for those of us who may not have accomplished all of the goals that we set out to achieve in 2015. So how do you recommend gaining a fresh perspective in preparation for the new year?
Ooh, I love this question, because one of the things that I do every year is based on the system that is called zero-based budgeting. And this is for planning and for your actual budget. And this means that whenever you're considering what's coming up, you're not using the past to actually plan it, and you're not using the past budget to go into the new year. So for example, with your budget, with your plan from last year, if you have anything that just didn't work or that didn't get done, now is the time to actually start completely fresh. So instead of using last year's business budget and saying, okay, let's keep this the same and just move some things around, you need to be able to justify every line item again this year. And it's same with your plan, actually. So you need to look at last year, look at the things that didn't get done that maybe you thought you wanted last year, and determine whether or not you still want those things right now. Was it just a matter of not being able to get it done, or did you lose that spark for that particular goal or project along the way? And in that case, it's time to just finish it by crossing it right off the list, removing it from the list. And as Ariana Huffington says, that's one of her favorite ways to complete a goal sometimes, is to just get rid of it from the goal. So that is something that you have to evaluate as you're going into this new year. And then I like to be gentle with myself in a new year. And when I'm looking back, I like to just let it all go. I mean, past is the past. You can't change it now. You can't change 2015, but you've got this fresh new slate to work with. And again, this is why these first couple weeks of the year are so key and can be so powerful in getting that momentum. So do the zero-based planning and budgeting system. Start from scratch and make sure that you are justifying everything that's going into your plan and everything that's going into your budget all over again. Nothing stays just because it maybe didn't get done last year.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's perfect. Giving yourself some grace for what didn't get accomplished, and starting fresh for the new year and focusing on what you can do differently, and looking at it as a fresh slate. So I love that. Great answer. Thank you. So it's also easy to get overwhelmed with what you want to accomplish for the new year. So what is your simple approach to goal planning?
Ooh, another question I love. I love talking about planning in general. I'm such a planning junkie, so I've tried so many different systems, and what's worked for me is really what I've put together in the Concord Kit, which helps you lay out a 12-month plan. You don't have to do it at the beginning of the year. It can be done anytime, but I think the beginning of the year, when you've got this fresh slate, new year, ripe with potential and possibility, that's when you want to create a plan like the Concord Kit. So for me, I don't set more than 5 what I call my bigger picture goals for the year. So I believe in getting focused on 5 key things that you really want more than anything else. And once I have those 5 things, I assign 5 milestones to each of those bigger picture goals. And then I create a vision board for each goal. And this is all in the Concord Kit. And I like to do that because I like to keep my vision boards very focused. I don't want to have just like one big general board for my life. I like to break it down and say, okay, if I focus on this goal, if I complete it, here's what my life is going to look like and feel like with that goal having been done, having been accomplished. And I like to create a vision board from that energy and from that space. So one of the other things that I'll do is create a 5x5 plan. And 5x5 is simply your 5 bigger picture goals times the 5 milestones that you have set to hold yourself accountable and to keep yourself on track. So this gives me, yeah, you probably have this in.
I'm looking it up right now.
So I put it all onto one sheet, these 25 milestones that I've set for the year. And I keep that with me wherever I go. And when you get the book, we'll actually send you a copy of the 5x5 worksheet as well. So you'll get that as a separate worksheet if you want to print it off and have a copy that you can just take with you everywhere. And I always have this with me because I like to keep it on my wall in my office or in a notebook just so that I can look at it and measure everything else against that 5x5, against those 25 milestones. So if a new opportunity comes along, maybe it's a speaking engagement or somebody wants me to co-host an event with them or do a joint venture, I look at that 5x5 and I'm like, does this actually contribute to the 25 things that I want to accomplish this year? And it feels really good. It feels really expansive to know that you're only focusing on 25 things max for the entire year. It doesn't feel overwhelming. And then when you have that 5x5 plan done, and let me say too, if you feel like taking on 25 things or taking on 5 bigger picture goals is just too much. It feels too overwhelming. Or if you're still working a full-time job and your business is your side hustle, maybe you'll do 2 or 3 bigger picture goals, and then you're creating a 2x5 plan or a 3x5 plan. And that's okay. You're giving yourself 10 or 15 things to focus on for the whole year. It's still going to keep you laser focused on what you want the most. And then when that is finished, this is when I go and brain dump all the tasks associated with a particular milestone. So right now, I am writing another book that will come out at the end of this year as a sort of expanded Concord Kit, like what comes after the Concord Kit, what you need for the day-to-day. And so because I'm writing that right now, you know, the draft, like getting the draft done was one of the milestones for actually finishing that project. And then I go through and I break the draft down into tasks. So the draft tasks might be, you know, I might lay out all of the subsections. So not just the sections, but every subsection within each section. And you try to get down to the tiniest details. So the tasks that may only take you, you know, 30 minutes to an hour to complete, you're trying to think of everything associated with that task. And then you need to put them into a project management system. And that's really non-negotiable. I mean, you have to have a way to track this stuff somewhere. It can't just be in your head, or you can't just have your goals on paper. And I think that's usually the bridge that's missing for a lot of people between knowing what they want and then actually getting it done.
Yes. So which project management system do you use or recommend?
So I love Asana. I guess some people call it Asana, and I'm hearing more and more that it's actually supposed to be Asana, but I've always called it Asana. So Asana is like my go-to favorite tool. My whole team is on it. All of our projects are there. I find that it's very simple to use. We use Basecamp for really big design projects because I feel like Basecamp is a little more conducive to design projects. And so we've used that. I know people love Trello as well, and Trello is a big one for a lot of people. I think you use Trello, right? You guys use Trello. And I mean, it doesn't matter which system you use. You just need to pick one that works for you. So if you are a design business, I do find that Basecamp can sometimes be your best option. Otherwise, like look at Trello, look at Asana. You can get free accounts to play with and to trial. Do it, like play around with them and see what works best for you. I don't think there's a one size fits all. And I would rather you pick a system that you're actually going to enjoy using and love. What actually really sold me on Asana, and this is going to sound crazy, but you can, in the settings, enable unicorn mode. And if you enable unicorn mode, when you actually finish a task, and it's very random. So it's when you're in what they consider like super productivity mode. So you might have to get done, I don't know, 3 or 4 tasks in an hour. And if you do that, and they're saying that you're a unicorn will actually like shoot across your screen like pooping a rainbow, and it just makes me so happy. I think it's one of the things that's keeping me around. So if anyone from Asana is listening to this, don't take away your unicorn mode, because some of us, that would be a deal breaker.
Yeah, that's good motivation to work hard to get everything.
It's just so fun, and it only shoots across your screen for a second, so it's so hard to even like screenshot it or anything, because I mean, if you look away, you'll miss it. It happens so fast, but it's so fun.
I love that, and I love your idea for only choosing 5 goals. I think it's easy to get really overambitious and say, I'm going to tackle all of these things, and then lose sight of them, and that's probably why they're never achieved. For those of you interested, on page 175, I don't know if you can see it that well right here, but that's the 5x5 chart that Natalie has in her book. And it allows you to put your goals up at the top and then your milestones along the side. And just, I think it's really helpful for seeing it, especially for those of us who are visual, and then to go and take those and put them into a project management system. Do you set dates for them when you have your goals?
Yeah, that is a really good question. So I like to structure my year in sprints. So I'll usually do 90-day sprints. And at the end of that, if I've worked really hard in those 90 days, I'm probably getting to the point where I'm starting to burn out. Like right now, I'm about 115 days into a sprint and I'm feeling it. Like to be overdue by, it'll probably end up being 2 months of being overdue for some downtime. I'm going to start feeling that. And I'm already feeling that hard. Like it is hard because I couldn't really take a break in between our launch and then the book launch just because of how the book launch fell, which is fine. But before that, I took an extra long trip just so that I was recharged. And it doesn't have to be a trip, but at the end of the 90 days, there has to be some downtime, even if it's a staycation around your home for 4 or 5 days where you're disconnecting and really getting centered again and grounding yourself. I'm a big believer in having to continually ground yourself and root yourself in everything that you're doing and focus on charging yourself up creatively. So I find that I need that bit of downtime to really tap into my creativity and get those new ideas flowing. And so I will set dates for the next 90 days. And then beyond the 90 days, there are loose dates, but these are not rigid. Like if we don't meet a certain date beyond the 90 days, that's okay. There's always room to change that stuff around. It's the next 90 days where the dates are more rigid and every single deadline has to be met. And I think that's another thing that actually gets people really overwhelmed is just having an idea at the beginning of the year of all the dates and laying out the entire year in so much detail that if you get behind on anything, you start to really get behind and feel like you're never going to be able to catch up. And so I actually think it's a mistake to lay out your year in that much detail. I think you should have an idea of the things you want to accomplish, but then you break it down into your quarters and say, okay, this quarter, this is what I really need to get done. And then at the end of that quarter, you're looking at the next quarter and saying, okay, what from these 25 things I wanted to do this year can I make happen this quarter? And that way, when you take it one quarter at a time, you can transfer things into the next quarter if you need to, and you can start to adjust, but you never fall so far behind that you lose your motivation and give up. And I find that that's what happens with a lot of creative entrepreneurs. You have this plan and it becomes very rigid of when you need to get things done. And then if you're 1 or 2 months behind, you're like, well, I'm never going to be able to catch up now. And then you totally start to fall off track because you're not motivated anymore, because you start to feel like a failure. And that's just not a good place to create from.
Yeah, I love the breaking it into quarters too. It seems much more manageable that way.
So much more manageable.
Yes. Yeah. So you have your 5 overarching goals and then 5 milestones for each one. How do you go about achieving each one of those milestones?
Ooh, I love that. So achieving the milestones really comes down to actually creating the task list for each one and getting that into a project management system. And again, this is the bridge between having a goal and actually finishing the goal that I feel so many people will like take the first few steps onto the bridge and then they just don't build the rest of the bridge because you haven't actually tasked it out. And so if you can take each milestone and really break it down, and again, I like to do this on a quarterly basis. So you have your bigger picture plan of what you want to do for the year. You've got your 5 by 5. You know what 25 things you want to do. Don't assign the dates and the tasks to everything at once. Take some of those things into quarter one and say, okay, these are the 5 or 6 milestones that I'm going to tackle this quarter. And then you need to have the tasks for all of them in a system that you're actually able to check off each thing as it's being done, because that makes it all very real and that gives you specific actions to take on a daily basis. And then you can just check in with yourself at the end of the month and see what happened and what didn't happen. And the reason why, another reason why I love having it in a project management system is because you can look at all of the archived tasks. So as you move throughout the year, we can see, okay, like we have done as a team 400 things so far this year. Because I find that when you're in the day-to-day of your business, when you're in the day-to-day of creating and trying to get things out into the world, sometimes you feel like you're not making any progress at all. I feel that there's so many days where I will work and get things, I will make progress towards something, but then at the end of the day, I'm like, what did I really do today? Could I have worked harder? Like, I feel I didn't get anything out into the world today because you're doing all that behind the scenes work. And then when you can look back and be like, okay, well, over the last month, I actually did do these 100 things, and that's getting me closer to finishing that milestone or that bigger picture goal. So this is why all the tasks are really important. And the tasks are that bridge that so many people just fail to create in their businesses.
It's funny that you say that because sometimes even I'll create a list for the day of my top 3 priorities and what needs to get done. But even if I go beyond that and I've already completed a task, I'll even write it down so I can check it off to remember I did accomplish that at the end of the day, to look through and say I was able to do this, this, and this. And that's usually a great motivator for me.
I love that. And I always do that too. If there's something that I didn't have documented before, but it's something that needed to be part of the process, this is how you get tighter on actually managing your systems and your processes too. If you track those things, even if they weren't originally in your task list, now you know for next time, okay, these were all the things that I actually had to do. And I find that all the time, like in a quarter, I can look back and I can say, okay, we just need to copy this whole plan for this new project that we're working on. And I'll remember then to put in all those little tasks that I may have forgot about before. And I think that's actually what helps you to improve your systems and your processes. And if you can do that, now you're getting more productive. Now you can get more done and keep that momentum up when your business is growing.
I love that. Also, you covered this in breaking things up into quarters, but for those of us who are overachievers and love the thought of getting everything done in January, how do you set priorities and prioritize which goals are the most important, which milestones, which tasks?
So I find that when I create my bigger picture plan, I usually have an idea of those 5 goals, like which ones are most important, and I do put them in order of priority for me. And I think it comes naturally to me. For some people, you want everything now. I've learned patience a little bit more. I remember when I was starting my business, I would definitely, I would want everything all at the same time. I wanted everything done yesterday. Patience was like my biggest issue and block that I had to tackle. And as I started to build a team and to see realistically how long certain things take and how long things take to do like max level of quality, because quality in our design and everything that we're putting out there, the marketing, the right systems, I've actually held back on my growth over the last couple years just to make sure the systems were in place and that we had what I would consider to be our best work that we were putting out. So from the outside looking in, people might be like, really, you've held yourself back? I don't think so. But that is the truth for me. Like, we could have been even further ahead than we are right now in terms of customers and sales and revenue, but I don't think it would have been the best that we could do. And so I hold us back based on what I think we're ready for, and to just make sure that the foundation is really solid. So we have spent a lot of time in the last couple of years building the systems. And I think part of prioritizing everything is making sure that you have the systems in place for each of those goals, like in order. So when you're thinking about your priorities, don't just think about what you really, really want more than anything, but think about the order of priority that will allow you to build the best systems along the way too. So maybe one of your goals, if you can get the right system set up for that one goal, it makes sense to do these 2 goals as your next steps because you will have created the right system for them. Or you might have to give yourself a little bit more time for a goal where you have no systems at all for. So just as an example for that, and we do cover, I get people to create their operations manual in the Concord Kit. And the operations manual is basically the Bible of your business. You should be able to hand somebody your operations manual and they should be able to jump into your business and start running it. Maybe not quite as good as you can right now, but that comes with training. But they would be able to step in and start taking over tasks for you. And then a lot of the other systems that matter, I find the most, are your client nurture systems. So when somebody starts working with you, do you have an autoresponder sequence set up in your email service provider like MailChimp or Constant Contact or Aweber or whatever you're using? Do you have an autoresponder that gets sent out every couple days to a new client that gets them to sign the contract and then tells them about your expectations for the relationship, how your process works? If you're a creative, you probably have a creative process that works for you and you want your clients to fit within it. And they may not have had to go through a process like that before. So you need to guide them in that. That is your responsibility as a creative entrepreneur bringing this client on. And so you need to have those systems in place. And that, again, I think is part of the prioritizing of your goals, is making sure that you have the systems in place for each one and then seeing which ones make the most sense in terms of building blocks. And often you'll find that your goals are kind of stacked like building blocks, that it makes sense to do two of them later because you're going to have a more solid foundation once you have finished 1, 2, and 3. And I find that all the time as well.
Yeah, I love that. And so we've talked a little bit, I know we were talking about planning and goal setting on a bigger scale, but I know that people who are joining in might be curious about this too. How do you go about goal setting and planning on a smaller level? So for your week or for your day, what does that look like for you?
Ooh, I love that. I love all your questions. Great questions. So day to day, I try not to do more than 3 major things that push me toward the milestones. So you've got to always be looking at those milestones. This is why I like having the 5x5 plan right in front of me, because if you can look at the milestones and you can see what needs to be done next, every day you need to be moving forward on at least 3 of those things. That's usually about half my day. And the reason why I like to have those 3 big things to conquer is because when you just have a to-do list, I don't know about yours, Lauren, but mine just never ends. I always have a to-do list that has 20 things on it. And so what I'll do is get those 3 big things out of the way. And those are usually things that are creative and creatively driven for me. So I need to carve out at least a couple hours a day to create new content, to create more resources for my community, to create video scripts, to create new books when I'm writing a book. Those 3 big tasks that I'm doing every day, those are the bigger things, and they're usually creatively driven. Then after that, I'll move on to my to-do list and see what I can get done in, the 4 or 5 hours that are left in the day. And if I don't get it done, it moves to tomorrow. But knowing that I've completed those 3 things first that are driving me closer to something on my 5x5 plan is how I stay focused on a daily basis. And then I think a really important thing for creatives to keep in mind is when you're doing your planning for the day, make sure that you're planning it the day before. You don't want to get up in the morning and have to create your 3 big picture tasks that you're going to get done for the day and then start thinking about what your to-do list is for the day. You should be able to wake up and know, okay, this is going to be my creative time. This is what I have to work on first, and then get into your to-do list. And same with for the week. I like to have an idea of the week set up on my Friday so that I know what I'm doing on Monday and I'm not thinking about it all weekend. I find that when you actually have it down on paper or in whatever scheduling tool you're using, that's when you can give yourself a bit of a break that you really need. You need to have rest. You need to take care of yourself. And I find that it helps to calm my mind when I know, okay, my week is planned. Now I can actually enjoy my life on Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, I totally agree. I spend time at the end of each week on Friday going through, I love Trello. So I have a Trello board called the Queue, and I have a list for each day of the week. And my friend came on board to help me. I have an assistant now, which has been great. And so it's a way for us to both look at the week and see the things that need to get done, what blog posts are going up, what promotions need to go out. But it's nice to see that all at a glance. way before the week starts so that when Monday starts, I can hit the ground running. So I love that. I could keep going with questions forever, but I want to give enough time for questions from those who are joining in. So for those of you who are watching, feel free to jump in the chat box with questions. I think I saw one earlier that was asking about the project management system that you use, but it looks like we covered that. And I think someone jumped in late and wanted to know more about the 5x5 plan. So Natalie, could you give an example of one of the goals, maybe one of your past goals, and then those 5 milestones?
Yeah, for sure. So let's do like writing a book, or writing, this could be an ebook for you as well if you want to self-publish it as a way to like build your credibility and your preeminence. So for something like a book, one of the first milestones, depending on whether or not you want to get it published or whether you will self-publish, would be to either get an agent and to start working on the proposal, or to work on the outline instead. So it doesn't matter if you are going to try to get it published or if you're going to publish it yourself, you're going to need to create that outline. And it may sound like a really simple task, but it's not. To create an outline with all the different features and the different subsections or subheadings that you would have throughout a book, even if it's a photography book or an art book, you still need to have that full outline done. So that would be step one. Step number two for that would actually be to do what we call in publishing the shitty first draft. So you can't edit as you go along. You have to just like try to put it all together in a very, very rough form. Step three would actually be getting an editor to go through it. And there are even editors that you can get if you are doing a more creative book for, let's say, your photography or your art. So then comes the editing stage. What fits within the book? What doesn't quite fit? What needs to be moved around? And then you would go into the either handing it off to a publisher or having to send it to the printer if you're self-publishing. And then the final step would actually be the marketing and the promotion for that book. So each of those things are very top level milestones, and then all of those have to be broken down into every little task that you can think of. So when you're in the stage where you're actually doing the draft, having each of those subsections that you're going to be writing tasked out in something like Asana or Trello. So what are all of those subsections? You need to have each of them as a task that you can mark off as you finish writing it and as you're putting it together. Now, some people, when it's a creative project, there are other ways of organizing that. So if it is a book that you're writing, some people like to do it based on words. So they'll actually task it out by saying, I need to write 500 words a day. And then they will have the 500 words with the date for all of the tasks, and they'll stay on track that way by every day going in and trying to complete a certain word count. So you can make it your own system. It doesn't have to be what everyone else uses. Like, go in and task it out in a way that feels really good for you. Just make sure that you get really detailed with it.
I love that. That's a great example. Actually, we just had a question come in from Courtney Lee, and she asks, how long does it take you to write a book? Are you able to meet those 5 milestones a year? That's amazing, she says. So first, how long does it take you to write
5 milestones? The book. You know what? It really depends on what type of book you are working on. So let's use the Concord Kit as an example. This might shock some of you. Concord Kit, I really wanted a big publisher for it, and I had put on my vision board that I wanted it to be published by Penguin or Random House. 2 biggest publishers. I wanted one of them to take the book, and just before we sold that book, they merged to become one company, and I got both of them.
Perfect.
So got Penguin, Random House, and I was happy with either or, and then to get Penguin and Random House was just awesome. So I had my first book, She Takes on the World, come out in March 2012. I already had the idea in my head for the Concord Kit when that book came out. because I have smaller exercises and actions in She Takes on the World, but it's a little more about my story too. And I knew I wanted to do like a full planning book. I started working on the proposal for it in April 2012. And it took me a while to actually write the proposal and do the outline and everything. And this is an example of a goal that I thought I could get a book deal by the end of that year and probably have it come out in 2013. That was my idea in my head. And that's an example of one goal that actually had to be spread out over multiple years. It wasn't done yet at the end of 2012. I didn't have that deal yet. And I said, do I still really want this? And the answer for me was yes, I do still really want it. I don't want to self-publish this one. I really want to get Penguin or Random House to publish it. And so I put it as a goal again for 2013. And that's when I ended up landing my dream agent. And finding the agent was a process. That was something that took a lot longer than I thought it would. And then we had to go back and forth on the proposal, I don't know, probably 10 times. So if you have a really good agent, you go back and forth a lot in that planning stage because the agent has such a good idea of what is selling right now, what kind of books publishers are looking for. And so she came back to me and was like, okay, finally, like it's ready to go. Let's do this. And that was already September 2014. And then in September 2014, I was hosting a retreat in Bali. And that's when we were having this bidding war on the book. And the time was like exactly opposite to New York time. So 2 p.m. in New York was like 2 a.m. in Bali. And I would have to go into this co-working space at weird hours in the night to talk to different publishers. And I ended up getting the deal then and finishing the first draft by December. So the actual creation of the book, I had such a detailed outline, so I knew I just needed to fill it all in and create it. And I was able to get that done in about 12 weeks by, again, I had all of the subsections and I chose to work on one subsection at a time. And then we had to design the book too, because a lot of it is like custom illustrated and it's quite a beautiful business planning book. So we then spent like 3 to 4 months on that. So the design took just as long as the actual writing. And then we did go back and forth. There were about 6 rounds of editing for that book. So it's a very different book than the very first draft. And even if you're self-publishing something, you can probably write that shitty first draft in 12 weeks if you buckle down and you're writing. You only need to write between like 500 and 1,000 words a day then, which is manageable if you can carve out a couple hours a day. But then you need to still go through the editing. So you need to get an editor and make sure you go through those few rounds of editing just so that it is the best piece of work that you can put out there. Yeah. So that was the plan for Concord Kit. So that one took a little longer because I had that idea of like, okay, I know who I want to work with on it. And sometimes you just have to be patient.
Yeah, that brings me to another question that is sort of asked in the chat. I'm going to rearrange it a little bit. But in terms of when you're setting those 5 goals at the beginning of the year, how do you know if your goal is too big? So how do you rein it in and still stay realistic if you have too many tasks that are associated with it? Or how do you go about that? So if you had 5 huge goals, yeah, how do you keep it realistic?
Yeah, again, great questions, guys. I love this. So this is why you need to plan at the beginning of the year. This is why you need to know what you want this year and why you have to have that 5x5 plan and know the 25 key milestones you're working on for the year. Because here's what happens. When you actually task all of those out and you put them into a system, you'll very quickly be able to see if it's too much for you to take on. And this is where you might have to say, okay, I really want to do all this stuff. Do I need to bring a new team member on to help me? Or do I need to shift some of this around? And again, in terms of a task, I'm doing about 3 tasks a day that are contributing to one of my milestones. So if I break all of them down, and sometimes I can do more than that, sometimes it's less, it really depends. But if you can have all the tasks for the milestone and you can put them all into, it doesn't need to be into a calendar, like I said, for the whole year, but you know the next 90 days, and then you have the tasks for the other 3 quarters of the year, you're going to quickly see whether or not something is going to be achievable in a year. And you may find that one of your bigger picture goals is actually two bigger picture goals. So, for example, a woman that I was speaking to a couple days ago, her bigger picture goal was to earn $100,000 in her business. But that's not the bigger picture goal. The bigger picture goal was actually three things that made up the $100,000 ultimate revenue goal that she had. But those were actually three bigger picture goals because there were three different products that she wanted to create and get out into the world that would make up that revenue. So sometimes you need to shift things around and sometimes break them out into two or even three bigger picture goals. But when you have the task list, that's when you're going to be able to say, like, go through and divide it by about 3 for every day of the year you'll be working and see how many you have over that. And that will be a really good indicator. If you have like 50 extra tasks, then you have days left in the year. You've probably taken on too much and you need to reevaluate whether or not it's possible, because you want your year to challenge you, but you don't want to get really far behind and then again lose that motivation. And that's when you need to think about maybe bringing somebody else on to help you as well.
Yes, delegating. I've also found it really helpful to include some buffer time in there, because I know that I have these great plans and they seem feasible and realistic at the beginning of the year, but because I'm a perfectionist, some tasks might take me a little longer than I had originally anticipated. So I like to have a little bit of buffer time in my schedule, even if it's just to catch up on something or something like that. I found it really helpful.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because you need that. And if you are a solo entrepreneur and a lot of these tasks are going to be on your plate, like sometimes it can take you twice as long as you thought it would. It's very easy to underestimate how much time it will take to actually get something done. So
Yes.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah. What does that look like for you? Like, how do you plan an extra time in your month, in your day? I know you said you have that downtime at the end of your sprints too, which is helpful.
Yeah, the downtime, I really need to actually recharge. And this is, when you ask me about how it looks like for me, it's very different now having a full team in place than thinking back to when I was doing everything myself. So now I find that we are really good at estimating, and this comes with time. When you've launched something 3 or 4 times, or your business kind of runs in cycles where you get a really strong sense of how long something is going to take. And especially with launching, with the Concord Club, for example, we know how long that's going to take now. We didn't on round 1, but with more time comes more clarity. And so we have a better sense of all of that now. And I feel like we're really good at estimating and we don't need as much buffer time. I think it would be safe to say when I was just doing everything myself, that things would usually take me twice as long as I thought they were going to take. And looking back, I'm pretty sure that could be the rule of thumb for me, to give myself twice as much time and usually twice as much budget as I thought it would take. If I had an idea for something I wanted to launch and I thought I could get it done in 3 months and for X amount of money, it usually cost me double and would take me 6 months instead of 3.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up budgeting, because it is a part of your book, in planning things out. So would you want to spend a little bit of time just kind of talking about how to plan out your budget for the new year?
Well, thank you for giving me that opportunity, Lauren, because this is like a smackdown that I do with a lot of creative entrepreneurs. For whatever reason, creative entrepreneurs do not tend to like the numbers. I think when you're a very right brain person, anything that's left brain can feel very daunting and very overwhelming. And physically, I think you feel like that's just not your wheelhouse. You feel like it's so foreign to you. And I'm very left brain, right brain, and I understand it from both sides. Like, I am very creative, and I find that when I'm in that zone, when I'm living in my right brain, I cannot think about any left brain stuff. And same with when I'm in left brain, I can't think about any right brain stuff. So I understand how you feel if you're right brain, because it would just be like me being in my right brain all the time and not having that opportunity to switch gears. So I get that. The numbers are so key because you can't make empowered decisions as an entrepreneur without knowing them. And so, what I've tried to do in the money section of the book is look at money and look at budgeting from the right brain perspective. And I actually got a lot of creative entrepreneurs and talked to them about what they were confused about, what they didn't understand, and how I could best explain it. And that's how I created the money section. So I worked with artists, I worked with some designers, I talked to them about, okay, what aren't you understanding? And tried to explain it in different ways until that light bulb went off, until I had an artist who was like, oh my goodness, I get it now. Like, I can do this. And so we've included the key financial statements that you need to be able to read in the book. And we've just gone through like some of those line items and some of the things that you need to know and understand, but we've done it in a very visual way. And I think that's what's often missing. Like, if you are a right brain creative, you're not going to open up an accounting textbook and be able to read the cash flow projection section and then understand how to go out and create a cash flow statement. Like, it needs to be visual. And I think a lot of times the people who write these kind of textbooks and stuff, they're so left brain that they don't even understand what it feels like to be in the right side of their brain. And so this is why we took the time to actually go through cash flow projections and go through the balance sheet and make sure creatives actually understand this stuff. Now, in terms of creating your budget for the year, again, because we're at the start of a year, and a lot of you probably run businesses that have a fiscal year of January 1st to December 31st, this is the best time to create your budget. You know, not in a few months from now, not in June, although if you don't have one, it's never too late. But this is the time that you actually create your budget, because it's going to help you stay on track, and you can start projecting how much revenue you're going to earn in certain months. And if you know how much is coming in approximately in certain months, you're going to know how to actually manage your cash flow. And it can be fun. It can be visual. We use a great tool now called Xero. That's Xero, and we really like it. Wave accounting is another one that a lot of entrepreneurs really like, just to be able to visually see how the finances are working and flowing. And you don't have to do this stuff yourself. You know, you can get a bookkeeper who is giving you these 2 or 3 statements that you might need every month, and you're going to be able to go through and just look at those statements, and you don't even have to read the whole thing. You can just read a few of the key line items to see where you're at, and that's going to help you make better decisions. And I do believe, like I said before, in zero-based budgeting, where everything from last year, you can look at it to kind of project things and how much revenue you may earn from things. But in terms of the money that you're spending and your expenses, start from scratch and justify everything that's in your budget all over again. But you do need to create a budget. And when you get the book, actually, we have a bunch of bonuses within the book that you'll be able to claim when you buy it. And I give you my budget worksheet. So my CFO has developed our budget sheets in Excel. She already has all the formula, like input. It's all done for you so that you can just fill in each field. You don't have to worry about setting any of the formulas up. You don't have to worry about trying to make sure that like this box will feed into this box and calculate from this box. Like, it's all done for you. So I give you my full budget worksheet that I use every single year. And that's also within the book, and is going to make your life a whole lot easier. Actually, the book is just, that budget sheet is worth so much. It's worth buying the book just for the budget sheet, in my opinion. But you'll get lots of other great stuff out of it too.
I think for any creative, we just cringe when we think about, like you said, the budgeting, all the numbers. We just want to be creative and create all day long.
I know. And what you have to remember is that when you actually focus on the money, when you focus on the budget, it actually, and same with the systems that we go through in the book, that if you have the systems in place and you've got the budget and you get the finances, you're actually creating more freedom, and more freedom means more time to create. I have more time to create every day in my business because of doing the left brain work.
Yeah, it's one less thing to think about. And I know that just having that weight on my shoulders of, I really need to be doing that, or I need to have a system in place for that, or I need to be more cautious about it. I hate living with that. So planning at the beginning of the year and seeing what it's going to look like and putting a system in place just gives me a lot more peace of mind. So I love that.
Exactly.
So the one thing that I really, really love about the Concord Kit, for those of you who are joining in a little bit late, this is Natalie's new business planning workbook. And what I love about it is it's from a creative perspective. So it isn't just another boring business planning workbook like we mentioned a second ago with the people who write all those financial planning books. This has great visuals, pretty pages, and it gets your hand moving. That's what I love about it, is that it has places for you to fill things in. And one of my favorite sections is right behind the goal setting section, and it's on crafting your Concord calendar and month mapping. So you can see here, Natalie.
Month maps. This is another way I really stay on track, because the month maps, going back to, thank you for showing those, because a calendar can feel very rigid. And again, this is when I was talking before about the dates and only having dates for the quarter. What I do instead is have these month maps that I do for the year. And those don't have any dates at all assigned to them. But those are both business and life goals, because sometimes when we're so busy focused on our business, we forget to actually live our lives and do all these other things that bring us joy. So the month map is more of I call it like a balanced ambition approach to your business and your life. And there's, in the month maps, it's the content that you have to create for the month and some of the goals that you have in both your personal life and your business, your revenue goal for that month. And it breaks it down. There's little reflections in there too. And this is what I'm going to expand upon now for the next book, is like breaking it all down month to month and day by day. And that for me starts with having those month maps. And again, it's all designed, like even when I'm talking about creating a system or a client nurture sequence, you get to like cut and paste and draw in this book to actually create those systems and to do this work. So we're taking left brain work and we're applying our right brain creativity to all of it. So it's a very good balance and mix of both.
I find that so helpful too, because oftentimes, especially when it comes to planning and goal setting, we have it up here, but we're also visual that we need to see it. It's important that we see it. So to spend the time just drawing it out, that's what I'm going to remember when I think about those goals or what my month looks like. I'm going to think about these month maps instead of maybe necessarily the calendar, which can be a little bit overwhelming to me. The grids and the structure is great for my perfectionist type A personality, but for my creative side, I need to see this, and I need to see that it's a little bit looser. And I love that you don't necessarily put dates on anything or timing. It's mainly just to map out the most important things. Even on this, it has money, career and learning, giving back, health, and relationships. So I think we always plan for the business side of things, but it's easy to lose sight of the downtime that you need, or the rest and recharging that Natalie was talking about earlier. Natalie, do you want to say anything about that?
Yeah, I think you need, so this is why I like to actually do 90 days and then take a rest, because you just can't go at full speed all the time. You can't sprint through 2 marathons in a row, which is what a lot of people try to do. They try to go as fast as they can and as far as they can in as short of a time as they possibly can. And it's not always the best way to get work done. And I took a very long 3-week vacation in August before I had to dive into our big launch and then the book launch, because I knew if I didn't, I would not be able to be productive. And I think you feel it. You really feel it when you've been going at it like full force for too long. It's hard when you sit down and do the work. It doesn't feel like you're flowing. You don't feel in alignment with it anymore, and something feels off. And that's when you know that you need to disconnect and know that you're actually saving yourself time in the long run by doing that. And that's another thing that I'm very mindful of. If I wake up one morning and I'm just so exhausted, and I had one of these days on Sunday actually, and then yesterday was my birthday, so I took a little bit of downtime as well. Thank you. And I just, on Sunday, I was so just, I felt so depleted because I've been doing a lot of media for the book, and I'm moving right now, and we have a launch coming up, and we're in the middle of the launch. Like, there's just so many things going on that on Sunday there were a lot of things I wanted to do, and I'm like, not gonna do them. Like, gotta take this day, have to take it. And then yesterday, it was a weekday, so I should have really been working, but I didn't have the energy to do it. I just wanted to like be alone on my birthday at a spa somewhere and have a steam bath and all those things. And that's what I went and did. And I had things that I had intended to get done yesterday, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to bring my all to it. So I just let myself have that time off. And today now I'm being so much more productive, and I'm able to catch up on everything from yesterday because I'm okay and motivated to work at 100% capacity today. So I think you just need to, this is why it's important to get out of your head and really into your body and into your heart space. And I think you can do that through taking care of yourself and going for walks and doing things that bring you joy. And when you do that, you're going to be able to feel out your schedule. And I'm a big believer in feeling it out and seeing if something feels off, like actually taking that time off. And then you need to do other things too, like learning. What do you want to learn that's new this year? And do you want to take a new course? Do you want to try something totally different that you've never tried before? How do you want your relationships to be? Like, all of those things are so important too. And this is why I believe in balanced ambition, because if you're always in the work, you also have these times where I think you need support and you've drained your support system too. And I've definitely done that at times in my business where everything has been about the work, and then I have, got to the point where I'm almost burning out, and that's when I need my support system most, my family and my friends, and then they're kind of annoyed, and I've sort of depleted the energy that was built up in that relationship because I've been so not focused on them and just in work mode. And I think that happens a lot. And so we have to invest as heavily into our health and our relationships and our overall well-being and happiness just as much as we invest into our ambition and success and doing all the things that we want to do. And you have to find your own balance. I like Marcus Buckingham's principle of strategic imbalance. So imbalancing your life, but in ways that bring you joy. So I think we stress ourselves out having to try to find this perfect equilibrium, which doesn't tend to exist. But there are ways of balancing your life in a way that feels really good for you. And that's what you need to play around with and figure out. And that's why it's so important to try different things. Try a new course, try something new this year. Every year I do something really random. Last year I took a herbalist course, so learning how to like make medicines and tinctures and all that, just totally not related to anything else that I do. I'm going to go to a painting class now as well, and phones are banned from being in there, which is great. I don't have my phone or anything with me. I'm just gonna like go and learn painting techniques, and that should be fun. I know some of you listening are actually artists, and that's probably more related to your work, but for me, going and painting is not something I usually do. So I'm gonna go and do that. I'm probably a crappy painter. Both my sisters are amazing painters, and so is my father. I was never the best at it, but I don't give a shit. I'm going to go do it anyway. I'm going to go and get my paint on. So that's going to be fun. And I think you just need to look at what those things are for you. Like, try something new and totally out of your element. I'm also going to join a rock climbing class, which, again, I don't know how good I'm going to be at it. I don't think I have very much upper body strength. I don't know. I'm pretty regular with my yoga and I can do push-ups and all that, but I don't know how I'm going to be able to do the rock climbing, but I'm going to try it anyway. And it's just as valuable to figure out things that you really don't like doing and hate doing as it is to find those things that really do. Maybe I'm going to find something new that I really love. Anyway, I could talk about this forever, so I'll stop now.
No, you're fine. I love that you
can do in your personal life.
I think that's so important because I had more downtime in December after just a really crazy year for Ellen Company, which was great. But I told myself when I was in the thick of it, because I love what I do so much, it's easy to let it consume everything else. You want to be creating, especially when you start to see things working and taking off, it gets to be contagious. And so for this year, one of the things that I'm focusing on most is refining and taking it down to those 5 goals like you talked about, and setting those milestones and not saying yes to everything. I love the 5x5 plan that you focused on. I hope everybody else, if they took nothing else away, that 5x5 chart, because it allows you to set boundaries and say no to some of the things that are trying to creep in. Yes. So Natalie, before we get off, that hour flew by. Will you tell people where they can pick up the Concord Kit? Where can they find it?
Yes. You can find the Concord Kit at theconquerkit.com. And really, it's available everywhere books are sold right now. I know Amazon stock has been going up and down because we've sold a lot more copies than we thought we would, which is amazing.
Awesome.
As of yesterday, we're actually getting a second printing of the book, which is huge to get a second printing in first week of the book being on sale. So that was a really big accomplishment for us that we're really excited about. So Amazon and online stock has been really up and down. Amazon's been selling out a lot because that's where a lot of people go to buy books. If you can go support your local bookstore, I'm a really big believer in supporting small businesses and local independent businesses. So go grab a copy at your local bookstore and support them. And then you get the book right away too, which is awesome, instead of having to wait for it to be shipped to you. And inside, you're also going to find a lot of bonuses. So you're going to find links to go and be able to download things like the worksheet and different meditations that I've created for you, and other resources and worksheets. So there's even more goodies that you'll find inside. So it's a lot of value for $15. And we've already been getting so many notes from people saying that, like, I've done a business program and I feel like I've gotten more out of just doing the Conquer Kit in these last few days. We've had a lot of comments come in with people sending in photos of all the pages that they've completed and having their first operations manual done, or having their first system in place, or really getting clear on the goals and the steps to get there. So already it's been a magical first week of having the book on sale, and we expect that the momentum will only pick up from here. So very, very grateful for all of it. Check it out at theconquerkit.com. I really created it for people just like you, so I hope you'll enjoy it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Natalie, for joining in and sharing your wisdom. If you all enjoyed this, yeah, absolutely.
I'm so grateful for it. I adore you and what you're doing, all the work that you've been putting out there. It's just so top notch, and I love the LChat, so I'm really honored I got to be a guest. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great to have you on. And if you all enjoyed this LChat, we have more great LChats coming up throughout this month. Next week, we have Jilly from Viral Tag coming on to talk about how you can use visuals to increase engagement on social media. So that'll be a great one. That'll be on Thursday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's our normal LChat time. But we made a special exception for Natalie this Friday. But I hope that you all have a wonderful Friday and a great weekend, and I hope to see you again next week. Bye.
Thank you.